talked, I had no idea. I was looking for who do I talk to? Where do I go? Something's not right, but I don't have the answers. So I fumbled around for a long time to where I am now, where I feel more focused, more comfortable, more confident, but recognize that there's still so much I don't know. But I'm okay with that, not knowing. I feel like I'm moving in the right direction now.
What part of Dallas helped shape that worldview? I mean, you're at Parkland, and 1 in 5 babies, I think, are born in Texas at Parkland.
Right.
You see everything all day, every day. But our city's in a really interesting time where, a lot of swirl in the social justice and social scene here. What part of Dallas helped shape your worldview?
Well, when I came here, my view of Dallas was purely through the lens of healthcare, and it was through Parkland Hospital, which is, I spent a lot of time there. I mean, probably more time than my own family. So that was what I saw, and I was quite content with that, knowing that when I went to work every day, I was doing something that would serve the underserved part of the community. But there was still a lack of proximity for me with these patients beyond the walls of the hospital. After 9/11, and I went from I was a very private person. I avoided the media. I was not even on Facebook. I mean, I kept my stuff to myself, and suddenly I'm out there, right? Not that I wanted to be, but I was there, and you can only run from that so much until the point where I decide, am I going to embrace this or not? And once I did that, I began to meet so many other people within Dallas that were doing great things, that were in my backyard, and I had no idea. And I thought, wow, if I can take my skills and knowledge and connections and work with them, what can we do? And that's where community activism became more important. People outside of medicine. I had this opportunity to chair this police review board. Mayor Rawlings appointed me to do that. That opened up an entirely new world for me with community activists as well as law enforcement within Dallas. So there is so much more behind the curtain that I didn't know existed. Now that I've seen it, I see all this beauty and potential and challenges, but it brings more meaning for me on a day-to-day that there are things we can do to better moving together towards progress to make this a better city.
We are with Dr. Brian Williams, noted as a trauma surgeon. He spent time at Parkland at UT Southwestern. He's headed to the University of Chicago Medical Center. And you mentioned, how the police shootings in that night kind of sparked something that really you hadn't thought about in a while. And as far as your original purpose and social justice and things like that. And even when and that was my first time really seeing you, was the interview that you did soon thereafter that. And it's almost like as you're speaking, these things are formulating in your head. So what was it about that instance, that night? What was it that made that spark?
I wish I could give you a simple answer to that. And I think you're talking about the press conference that occurred 4 days after. Right. So initially, when I was asked to attend that press conference, I refused. I didn't want to be there. That was the worst night of my career, and it still bothers me to this day. I didn't have any desire to be in front of cameras talking about this. My wife, she kind of gave me that nudge or a push, depending on how she's like, you at least have to go there and be on camera, because I had a media blackout. I wasn't following anything on media, so I missed all of the rhetoric that was going on. Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, All Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. I was oblivious to all of that. And she said, you need to get there so they can see you on camera. And when I was there, the press conference, which we've seen a lot after these mass shootings, it was kind of that same scripted, unfeeling press conference, and I'm sitting there thinking, there's so much more to this particular incident beyond all the others. When you consider the protest that was downtown, the targeting of law enforcement officers, the African-American shooter, this is how these elements that were ready-made for a very toxic mix, and that was not being discussed. And really, just in the moment, I'm thinking, Brian, you need to say something about this. And if you don't say it, it'll never be said. And then the opportunity to make a difference will be lost forever. And I'm also very worried. I was very worried. I was like, if you say something, you will get fired. That was in my mind. Like, I'm not here to talk about these things. I'm here to represent management. But I just accepted, okay, I'll say this, I will get fired. But there's these times where you decide, what are you going to do? What are you willing to do in the name of social justice? What are you willing to do for what you know is right? You can either shrink into silence, or you can step forward and accept that risk and do what's right. And I think it's a lesson for everybody that on a daily basis in our life. It just so happened that for me, it played out on national television, and from that point I couldn't go back in this high after this all happened. But it had a huge impact. It went viral, which I learned about long after the fact, and I still to this day people, strangers, say, hey, I saw what you said that day, and thank you for what you said, or I never thought about it this way, or it certainly had a lasting impact beyond what I could have ever imagined.
Deconstructing Dallas, Ryan Trimble, Shawn Williams. We'll be right back after a quick break with our guest, Brian Williams. Stick with us.
E-commerce guru Nicole Martins Ferreira believes the modern definition of entrepreneurship is about transforming the world by solving big problems, like initiating social change, creating an innovative product, or presenting a new life-changing solution. In the podcast you're listening to, we're exploring the life of one of America's most successful entrepreneurs, Phil Romano, a man who, through his innovative thinking, keen business sense, and relentless creativity, changed the restaurant world as we know it. We've covered a lot of ground, but if you want to learn more about Phil, a man who has made a difference, I highly recommend buying his book, The Mad Entrepreneur. This book captures Phil's entrepreneurial spirit and is a must-read for anyone interested in starting a business, taking a risk, capitalizing on an opportunity, or realizing a dream. If you're ready to get mad, then log on to www.philipjromano.com. That's Philip with one L, philipjromano.com. And for the low price of $22, you can get your own copy of The Mad Entrepreneur. Learn the secrets of how to get MAD and make a difference. I hope you'll check it out and get your copy of The Mad Entrepreneur today.
We are back, Deconstructing Dallas, Ryan Trimble, Shawn Williams. We're back today with our guest, Brian Williams, and really exciting stuff coming up. Shawn, you've been taking lead on Shop Talk, the second annual Shop Talk Men's Health Forum. Lo and behold, Brian is giving the keynote address at the event. So, Shawn, Brian, do you want to tell us a little bit more about Shop Talk?
Well, I mean, we've talked a little bit about this being a conference where men need to take control of their health. They need to be responsible for their health. And our guest last week, Timmy Newsom, talked about his role where he'll be coming on also to talk about his health after his NFL career. And so, Dr. Williams, Brian, I know one of the talks that you'll be giving is a keynote speech, but you're talking about resilience. And it's a term we're hearing a lot about, even for resilient cities, but how do you bounce back from trauma? And I know that's part of your talk, so I wanted to see if you might be able to, or willing to give us a tease on what you'll be talking about at Shop Talk on Saturday.
Well, sure, and I thank you for inviting me to come speak at the event. When we talk about men's health, there's so many things we could discuss, from chronic health issues. but I thought resilience would be a good topic to discuss, simply because mainly the stigma attached to any discussions about mental health for men, especially in African American men. This is, being strong Black men, we don't discuss these things. And I felt that I could use my story and my journey to get people willing to discuss about resilience. And I want to give people just 6 topics you can talk about. 3 things to know beforehand and 3 things to know afterwards, because you don't want something to happen to you and then you're trying to scramble around trying to figure this out. That's what leads to prolonged suffering and sometimes inability to even recover. So resilience, if some adverse event happens to you, and you define that for yourself. Are you injured? Is it a relationship breakup, or you lose your job? Something that just kind of changes your worldview. Whatever it is that knocks you off kilter, you want to come back after that event better than you were before. You don't want to let that define you. So in advance, if you know some things about yourself, like when I talk about the 3 response styles. There's hypervigilant, avoidant, and ruminative. Just briefly, the people that are hypervigilant, they're the ones that in a crisis, they perform very well. They like the crisis situations. They perform well. They think and act fast. But the problem is for them is that afterwards, they just don't feel right. They need that kind of adrenaline rush all the time. The ruminative folks are the ones that when something bad happens, they keep thinking about it all the time. They run that movie in their head nonstop, which in and of itself can be emotionally and physically exhausting. But the upside is that they sometimes can develop creative solutions to problems. And then the third is the avoidant. They just don't think about it. They compartmentalize and they get back to work, which, like I said, there's an upside. They get back to work. But the downside is that those emotions, they build up over time, and that can also be debilitating. Yeah. So if you're a ruminative, hypervigilant, or avoidant, and the reality is we're all some mix of those. But understanding those response styles, when it's happening to you, you can figure out what to do. Do you need to take a break and think about it? Do you need to exercise? Something to help you process the event. Then there's after the event. How do you come back? That's when it's important to know who your people are. You need to have a good social support network within work and outside of work. You need to somehow find some purpose in what's happening, either through spirituality, helping others. For me, I'm a speaker now. I speak about these things. And then physical self-care. People forget their physical self-care. So something, exercise, yoga, walking, whatever it is to get you out there. So those 6 things, your response styles and what I call the things you should have in your toolbox, so that when you're ready, you reach in and grab what you need. You're not sitting there fumbling and still suffering. So I will talk about that, but I'll personalize using my own story. It's one thing to get up there and have a PowerPoint and say, yeah, you need to do this.
Right.
But when I get up there and say, look, I've been through this, and here's what I did do, here's what I didn't do, I think that has more impact for people. I think it gives them permission to admit to themselves that, hey, this could or has happened to me.
I need to get to Shop Talk, Shawn.
That's what I'm trying to make sure you sign up on Eventbrite when you go and search Shop Talk Dallas on Eventbrite. And we need to get you signed up. Yeah. I do this for a living.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
That was smooth. That was very smooth.
So when I think about people that need to hear this talk, it would be like first responders who are always in it. They're the hypervigilant type, but literally everybody needs this type of preparation.
Exactly. And I mean, I think that's the very key point there, is that this can happen to anyone.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's people in your office today, there's someone out there right now that's going through something that could benefit from this. So even if it's not you, you may be able to help someone that is going through an event. That's why this is a universal topic. It's universal. It doesn't just apply to people that are on the front lines of disaster all the time.
Yeah. We are losing you to the city of Chicago, which I'm a little bit salty about, but I'm happy for you and your family because I know it's a great opportunity. And we're aware from media reports about the gun violence in Chicago.